Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. I have a treat for you guys today. I was on this amazing podcast a while ago that I think you will love. You might have already heard about this podcast, but if you haven't, I need you to stop what you're doing immediately. Go subscribe to this podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And we always give an automatic 5-star review for anybody that is nice enough to come on and talk to us. And especially because this guest today, I gave him homework and I made him watch a 3-part Netflix series called Dirty Pop, the boy band scam, which kind of follows the travails of one Lou Pearlman, who I think we all know through our love of pop culture. But our guest today is also a television producer. He's worked on Bravo shows, Snack versus Chef, Bake It Till You Make It. I mean, tons of Housewives stuff, which I'm not going to fully get into, but he is well seasoned. But I got to tell you, this podcast, Fixing Famous People, him and his co-host Dominic Pupa, it is really just an amazing collaboration that I had the best time. And whenever I do get to listen to it, it's like two of your funniest friends talking, and then they bring on this amazing guest, and they kind of fix a celebrity's life or find a way that, by the way, I would love to see how he would fix Lou Pearlman's life if he was still alive.
Oh God, I don't even know if we can do that.
Well, without further ado, you probably know him already, but if you don't, his name is Chris DeRosa and he's with us today. Thank you for being here, Chris.
Thank you for having me. People still are like, oh my God, I loved your episode. I mean, when you came on, we fixed Angelina Jolie and Brad Pitt, and they're nowhere near fixed. If anything, you might need to come back for a part 2, because if anything, there's like more wrong now than there was when we fixed them. So,
I mean, like the one child petition to have
the name,
drop the name Pitt from the name. We had the one son in a motorcycle accident this week, and then we also had a petition.
I still don't know if he's like. I think he's okay, right?
He's okay, but what's wild about that is that it was on his motorbike, and TikTok is like sometimes the best and the worst. Yeah. Is that this one lady on TikTok was like, listen, I've seen this kid pull wild moves on that motorcycle all over Los Angeles. And I was like, oh my, she was like, this was bound to happen. And I was like, that is so dark. But it's like to think about this kid rolling around on his motorcycle.
Yeah. Well, and then you saw that like, she was like, if you let me out of like this lawsuit with the winery, like, yeah, Angelina was like, if you let me out of this lawsuit, like there will be peace, and if not, there will be violence. You know what I mean? Basically.
Well,
and so,
I'm
chomping at. I'm like over here with like a telescope, like pointed at their house, like waiting for the next like People.com article to come out. About, this lawsuit.
It's dragged on for nearly a decade now with Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie.
Yes.
And it really, it's kind of like there are certain things that I just don't know if there will ever be peace. Like I say that, and I always make that joke about Real Housewives of New Jersey. It'll never know peace. We just have to accept it. And I do feel like I will be on my deathbed and there'll still be motions filed with Brad and Angelina.
Yeah, with
like,
the Miraval wine. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's never going away. And I'm anyways, we did a whole episode on that, but it's not just that episode. It's every celebrity they choose is kind of entertaining. Even the ones you don't think are going to be entertaining, it turns out to be entertaining. And, I was reading about how you started the podcast, but what can you tell the audience? Because it also involves one of my favorite people, Kate Casey, of how you kind of came up with the idea for Fixing Famous People.
Yeah, very quickly. So I've been a reality television producer for a long time now. Real Housewives of New York back in the day, Real Housewives of New Jersey. You probably just saw the back of my head as the producer calling the ambulance when John Fuda has an allergic reaction. So
in this week's episode of Jersey, when Fuda had the big lips, when you see eyes.
And he's like in the bathroom, and then it says Chris producer. That's me. So so that's my day job. And then basically I got linked up. My friend tagged me in something with Kate Casey once, and she ended up getting in my DMs and being like, oh, you're a producer on these shows. I would love to talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And that was a couple years ago. Now her and I talk she's like one of my greatest friends now. And I talk to her all the time. And I'm on her show all the time, but I went on her show a bunch. We reviewed a bunch of stuff. And then one day I was like, you know what? I've had all these podcasts in the past that were just fun and just for fun. And I had no desire to like grow them, but I really think that I want to do my what is my podcast of this, blah, blah, blah. And I had just been reviewing the Meghan and Harry, docuseries that they had on Netflix with her. And in that episode, I was like, if I had 15 minutes alone with Meghan and Harry, like they would be running the country. Like if I could just tell them like, hey, no one wants you to be relatable, like just be Prince Harry and his wife, like that's fine. Like all this, like we're just like you, like no, that's not what you are. Stop being a victim, like blah, blah, like take control of this and like blah, blah, blah. And everyone will rally around you. And she was like, I was like, I want to have a podcast and I don't know what it is. Like, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? And she's like, well, you had the idea on my show. She's like, you said, if I had 15 minutes in a room with this celebrity, I would tell them this, like, that's your podcast. And I was like, that is my podcast. And then my co-host Dominic Pipo has been a television producer way longer than I have. He did season 2 of Real Housewives of New York. Like he used to do the A-list New York.
Wow.
He used to, I mean, he did Don't Be Tardy season 1. Like he's been around the block. He still is. And now like the on-air producer of Teresa Caputo. He did Long Island Medium for 1,000,000 years. So I, was like, hey, I want to do a podcast. I need a co-host. Do you want to do it with me? He was like, absolutely. And then we're now in year 2 of the podcast and it's going amazingly.
What are the best and worst things about podcasting? Because I know I have my answer. What do you like and dislike about podcasting?
What I love about it is that I get to be like, when you're a producer on a show, you have to be the like calm in the storm for these people. And I get to be not the calm in the storm. I get to be the housewife.
Yeah.
On my own show. And that's really fun because I'm so used to, again, as you saw, be the person calling the ambulance, and I get to be the person like needing the ambulance. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and not that
it makes complete sense.
Needy or like a diva. Like who am I being a diva to? Dominic through a screen? Like no one. But like being able to just like give your opinion that you wish you could say instead of being like I need to be diplomatic and I also need to be the person like driving this bus kind of a thing. Does that make sense? I don't know.
It makes complete sense. It makes complete sense. Well, I mean, but just to go back to producing though, how does one get involved in production work? Like, are you a kid and you're like, I have a dream of producing?
Yeah, kind of. Like, honestly,
is that really it?
Like, I grew up in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania. So like TV was my window to the outside world. Like I didn't have like the biggest city was an hour away from me. And that was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is a small city comparatively to now living in New York, So I always was like, oh, I love, like me and my friends used to on my dad's like Sony Handycam that had like the panel that would come out on the side that was the screen that still had like a cassette tape, like not even a memory card. Like this was still like on a cassette tape. We would make like The Real World and we were in my basement and I would like direct it and I would like push like record and then have them do it and then push stop. Like I couldn't even edit it. I had to edit it like in the shooting of it. And I even like set up like an interview setup, like where I would then have them go to their interview and say something like, I don't know. It's weird to look back
Chris,
on now.
Please tell me you still have this video. Please tell. I mean,
it is somewhere. And all my friends from high school are like, where is this? Like, I need this. And I know it's somewhere. I just have to find it.
Oh God, that brings me back to the days of like, hooking up 2 VCRs to each other and trying to edit on 2 VCRs. Because I was that same like kid with a camcorder that would try to edit like between 2 VHS tapes for like the stupidest like projects. Like I just stupid sketches and things like this. And I would love to know where those tapes are today.
We always wrote we'd always write like skits and all this stuff that was like, but again, it was all like production value things. We're like, and then this person enters and this like, so I always liked doing it. And then I obviously went to school and got a film degree. And then I just came to New York and started working and, working as a PA, getting people coffee and telling them when to go to set.
Well, I mean, I always think about this, how I need to spend more time appreciating everything that I have and everything that I've done and really try to, do you ever stop and go like, holy shit, I'm from this small town. I'm actually doing things that I set out to do. Do you kind of pinch yourself or is it all just like, it's so busy? I don't have time for that.
No, there are times when you like talk to people that you like grew up with where you're like, oh yeah, like I really just was like a little kid in a small town that was like lost and not that I was like lost in the world, but like kind of just like what I'm doing now is like not even a fathomable dream of like what I would have thought that I would have been doing. You know what I mean? I didn't even know that it existed kind of a thing. And I was on the phone with someone today, actually. And we were talking about, I've started to do a lot of podcast consulting as well of like people wanting to start shows or I want to get my show better. I want to do this. And
can you help, Chris? Can you help me? Please help.
You're fine. You don't need anything. You're more than fine. Okay. So don't even start with that. But I was talking to this person and they were like, I was like, yeah, but does anyone even care what I have to say? Like, I'm not the biggest podcaster in the world. And they were like, you forget that they said to me, they said, you forget that you like have a resume on TV and you have this and you have that. And like that, it like, yes, we all think it's not that cool because it's so normal now, but like in the like scheme of the world, like you have a really cool job and you've done a lot of really cool things. You just don't forget, like you just forget to pat yourself on the back because it's normalized for you. And I was like, you know what? That is true. I was like, it's like,
it's so interesting how we view people. Cause I remember when you followed me on Instagram and I was like blown away. I remember, cause I was like, oh wow, this guy, no, I swear to God, I was like, and I have this weird insecurity that I've lived with my entire life, but I'm just like, oh, I always thought, oh, this guy's very cool. Like this guy. And like, I'm always like hesitant to reach out to people.
Sure.
And like but I was so excited. And then like you would work so much with Kay Casey. I was like, oh, he must be a nice guy. And then being able to do your podcast, it was the best time. And I feel like you represent that for so many people, of somebody that comes on, you make something immediately enjoyable. And I would love to see you in action of like doing what you actually do. Now, I know you can't really talk about like you're a professional and there are so many questions around Jersey. And
sure.
I just will say, like, is it bizarre for you to work on a project and then watch a fan base get it and all of the discourse happening around it? Does that blow you away when like the audience runs with it and you kind of have been there on the ground?
It used to. Now it's just normal. And then there are times when I'll catch myself and be like, oh, wow. Yeah. I don't know. It's weird now because I feel like because of social media, it's so different. But do you remember like back in the day, whenever like the either like people.com or like the Us Weekly, like article would come out where it'd be like the new trailer of like the Real Housewives of Orange County is dropping. And it was like the whole world stopped and we all watched it like 70. And you weren't on Instagram watching them. You had no idea where they were going on the trip. Like you weren't watching them at every turn, like doing Instagram stories about every part of the show, like before it aired. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yes,
before,
it was such a romantic time.
And it was like, so and you were like, we were like shaking like a rattle whenever like it would come on and it'd be like Tamra versus Vicky, like screaming at each other. And then, you know what I mean? Like seeing Shannon.
Well, now we see like, Tamra and Vicky
just my fucking plate, like throwing it at each other. You know what I mean? Like that was like, you were like in the fetal position on your floor afterwards because it was like, I was talking actually to Dorinda the other day and she was saying that. I was like, do you remember back in the day when we used to like, when like, it would be like, okay, like Turks and Caicos trip is happening. Like, you know what I mean? It's like the trailer drops and like the whole internet would like explode with like, and again, like, I mean, there's so much discourse about Jersey right now. There's so much, it's a whirlwind, but it's like, so I don't know. It just feels so normal now, which before it didn't. I don't know, but it is. Well, no, there are times when you think about it, and like your friends from high school or like people that you meet in the world are just like, wait, you do what? Like you work on Real Housewives of New Jersey? Like what do you? And a lot of people sometimes don't believe me. Like they'll be like, but like, what do you do? And I'm like, the voice that you hear in the interviews with them, and they're like, yes. I'm like, that's my voice. Like, and they're like, oh, like people don't get it. Does that make you know what I mean? Like it's like there's a skepticism about it where I'm like, I don't know what you need me to like. Do I have to prove this to you? Like just being in the episode, prove it to you? I don't know. Like what? Like
well, also I think that there's so many misconceptions, and like the biggest thing I've learned through doing this show is that how real these shows actually are. As everybody thinks they're kind of manufactured. And like, I understand like sometimes like entrances and exits can be manufactured or like a certain timing in certain ways. But like at the most part, these shows are 100% frighteningly real.
I wish I could say that they were scripted because that would make my job so much easier. However, they are not. Like, did I think that John Fuda was going to have an allergic reaction for no reason? Like, for a reason that we still do not know today, like in the middle of a scene, and I would have to call an ambulance? No. Did I like slip something in his drink on purpose? Like, no. You know what I mean? Like, I would like things happen and you react to them, and that's what it is.
I will say that scene was, I mean, it wasn't supposed to be funny, but it was hysterical because it reminded me of like, I used to be my ex's Italian dad. When all the guys get together, it reminds me of her dad so much of kind of the boisterous and the bragging and like, let's eat well and let's drink and to watch Fuda like laid out. I'm like, I'm fine. And the paramedics coming in. I was like, there's something unintentionally so funny when those guys get together on Jersey. But to your point, also what you were saying about the past, is that, you used to see these Shannon Tamara scenes in a preview and it'd blow your mind. But now through second screen technology and their internet, we see them fight every day online. It's not just the show anymore.
There's so much about, I mean, this is now a whole nother topic of everything, but like, it's so much of like the online part of it. And there's so much of that I just hate. Because I'm just like, can't we just live in the show? I don't know.
Yeah.
And yes,
well, I mean, it just feels
and P.S. like, I love that like people like you and people like, you know what I mean, KKC and people like all these recap podcasts that are like that only makes my job more fun. That all these, I love to listen to the people recapping it to hear what they think of the episode. Like I really do. And like, are there times when I disagree with them? Sure. With other times, but like I do something that makes something for the public, and so there's always going to be an opinion about what we do. So whatever that is, it is. But there is a world in which it's like, okay, but like, just let them do it on TV.
Well, that's what I always say. I always say
like,
no. I mean, what I've now, like this long into it, kind of started telling people is like, I do want to like let the producers tell the story they're trying to tell. Like then we can actually but like sometimes I feel like we're trying to interfere at a certain point. Like we're actually becoming part of the story, and I never want to be part of the story. The only thing I want is sometime for my voiceover on a podcast, how they do on those previews of like, Jax Taylor was taken by ambulance.
And it's like, that's breaking, breaking news. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, the audience shouldn't become ever a storyline. But anyways, just the Jersey thing, the Margaret thing this week. Fantastic little note card on the flowers. Hysterical classic Housewives. But there's so much speculation about your show, and I know you can't get into it. But thank God we have him.
I don't know. Listen, you know everything. P.S. You know everything that I do. Like we don't.
Yeah.
You never know. We have no idea what's going to happen. So
are you allowed to go back to Rail's restaurant, or are you banned permanently?
Oh no, I want to go finally actually eat there myself. Like I've been there 9 million times, but like it just like I want to actually go sit down for a meal there. The food is great. I will tell you that. Like it really is really good. Like it's really good.
I just love the beginning of the season starts with Dolores sitting in Rail's restaurant with obviously a fight took place. And I was just like, this is so wild what this Rail's restaurant has seen throughout the years.
And I will tell you this is that like I shoot the show and then months later, like I watch it on TV like everyone else does. And so like when I finally see it edited together, it's like so like I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot we even shot that scene. Do you know what I mean? It's like it's so many months later that I also am watching it in real time with everyone else, and it's fun to like be a viewer of it after being in it. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. It's very interesting. Yeah. And that's even become normalized where like that used to be so surreal and now it's just so normal.
I mean, it's got to be, I swear to God, this will be the last kind of housewife thing, but you mentioned talking to Dorinda, and that just kind of blows me away because that's actually one of your friends. You guys talk and communicate as friends. And to me, Dorinda, that's a legend. Like that is somebody that I'm like, wow. Like I had Dorinda on my show once for her book. And I was like, and tomorrow I'm co-hosting Jeff Lewis with Countess Luann.
Oh, amazing. Tell Lou I said hi.
Okay, can I name drop you? So I don't really know her that well.
No, tell her I said hi.
These people are legends to us, and it's interesting to get like a peek behind the curtain and realize they're just normal people.
They're normal people to a degree, but they wouldn't be on television if they were completely normal. I'll say that much. But I mean, this is the thing is that like when you work on these shows, you're in their homes every day with them. Like if I go to, you know what I mean? Like if someone invites me to their house as just like a civilian, like if I like would bop up to Bluestone Manor, I would just walk in the front door like normal and like know where everything is. Cause I've been there so many times. And it's like, that's a part where then like, if it would be like me and like my friend that's like so excited to meet Dorinda and I'm just like walking in the front door without even knocking and then just like whatever, you know what I mean? It's like run of the mill normal day for me. And then they're like, oh wait, oh my God, what? Huh? Like there's been times when we've like met them for stuff and it's like, no, this is just normal. Like, cause you spend so much time with them in their very intimate moments. Like we're in their bedrooms with them when they're doing a packing scene. We're like in their closet with them. We're here, we're there. So it's very much like, all those formalities break down very quickly, if that makes sense. Like you become, you know them very well so quickly. And Dorinda, especially, my first season was her first season. And so we kind
came up together,
known each other for the whole time of us doing it. So
yeah. Well, also, I always tell the audience too, is that like we were talking about the Jax Taylor news from yesterday about potentially a mental health hospital, and him kind of checking into like,
I know that's crazy.
It really is crazy. But I was trying to explain to people that like, the producers genuinely care about the people they're filming. Like for the most part, like these people, especially like Evolution and, producer Jeremiah, people that work on the Valley and Vanderpump Rules, they've known Jax for so long that even if we think of Jax a certain way, they genuinely do care about these people. They're not looking to ambush or sabotage. And sometimes I don't think the audience understands that you do form these relationships. We do in our working environments every day in our normal jobs.
And yeah, well, that's something like all the time on our show, people are like, I always do an Instagram and I'm like, okay, who should we fix next? Like who should go on the list of people to fix? And people write in every day, Bethany Frankel, Countess Luann, like blah, blah, you know what I mean? Shannon Bedore, like blah, 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 like all the housewives. And like, first and like, you know what I mean? It's like, I can't, that's my friend. Like I can't do that. Like one, no. And two, it's like, I don't know. It's so hard I'm trying to like think of what the right words are. Is that like, and when I read like, oh, he's like doing inpatient like care for mental health, like that's scary to me. Like that's not like, oh my God, like good seat. I'm like, oh no, that's really scary. Like I don't like that. And like we never want to see someone in a position like that ever. You know what I mean?
No.
I'm glad that he's getting help because
and you have to take it seriously once that kind of is announced. Like we do have to
correct.
And especially after this year of like, Rachel Leviss and all of this kind of insanity that's happened, you got to take mental health very seriously.
And like, also like, guess what we love to watch is like them having fun together sometimes, please, for the love of God. Do you know what I mean? Like there's times when we're like, I mean, back in the day on New York, we'd be like, all right, like, okay, like we're good. Like, let's just, you know what I mean? Like, okay, like let's have fun. And then it's like, all right, we kind of got what we needed to, you know what I mean? It's like, we did the dinner. Everyone said what they needed to say. And then they would just blow off steam and they would have the best time. And it would be so much fun to shoot them just having fun together. You know what I mean? It's
I used to love to see those Roni ladies having fun in particular. Yeah. Like it was great. And that's why sometimes it's interesting as these shows continue for now a decade plus, you're like, God, these people have known each other so long. And sometimes relationships aren't, there's seasons in all kinds of friendships. There's ups and downs. And it's really hard, I would imagine, to create a reality show based on human friendships.
Yeah. It's yeah.
Okay, so moving on from that, someday Chris will write a very dignified book. So by the way, I got to tell you guys turned me on to that Barbra Streisand autobiography, which I love. I love. It was the best 48 hours of my life because I listened to the audiobook and I never wanted it to end.
It is really truly like very healing and soothing because you feel like your grandmother is like telling you a story.
Yes. Like I highly recommend the audiobook because her voice is such this soothing kind of like, it adds so much to what she wrote, just hearing it.
And it's like you hear her voice and you know her voice. Like she's like one of the most famous people on the planet. So it's like you hear her voice and it's like you've known it your whole life. So it's like also very comforting because it's a voice that you know so well,
But even her describing ice cream, like I'm just like, this lady is so detail oriented.
And it's like 1,000 pages long.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. There's like a 10-page section about her favorite ice cream.
The audiobook is truly 2 full days long. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and I never wanted it to end. So you guys, I've mentioned that a couple of times, but this is where I initially got the recommendation, was listening to their podcast, which was crazy. Okay, before we get into Dirty Pop, 2 things. Celine Dion, which by the way, your new episode is out yesterday with Amy Phillips, who we love. Who did you guys fix with Amy?
We fixed Ryan Murphy, and she gave us a Countess Luann impression. Her and I did dueling Ramona Singer impressions to each other. She then gave us Gwyneth Paltrow, who we call Gwyneth, as you know, Gwyneth Paltrow. And then also a Jessica Lange impression that will knock you out into next week.
Jessica Lange?
Multiple times she did Jessica Lange. And when I tell you that Dominic and I, like, just for you picture, since you know us at least a little bit, you picture what Dominic and I were doing during her doing an incredible Jessica Lange impression. And that's exactly what we were doing. We were on the floor apoplectic. It was amazing. And we fixed Ryan Murphy.
But does Ryan Murphy need fixed when he's at the top of the world in terms of project output?
Sure.
What needed fixed with Ryan Murphy?
Quality. The Swans was such a swing and a miss for me. I'm sorry to say. Like The Swans was like everything was there. The cast impeccable.
The lead actor I thought was great as Truman.
He did amazing. But then after like 4 episodes, I was like, why am I here? Like he exposed them or whatever, and then they were just upset the whole time. Like I just at a certain point, I was like, 2 episodes of it were just the same episode twice. I was like, wait, this is just more of the same problem. Like nothing is happening. There's zero movement. It's just the same scene in a different outfit because you had another wardrobe. Like we're getting to the stunt casting.
So it's like masturbatory in a sense.
Yes. And it's like too much of that. Like I need him to eat you'll hear in the episode, but I need quality control. And now that Kim Kardashian is on like every single thing that he's in, and again, Kim is Kim, she can do whatever she wants. And she's a juggernaut of the industry, period, done. But it's like, that was fun once. And now that she's like a mainstay of your like works, I'm not interested.
Well, I keep meaning to bring that up on the show, and I didn't because Ryan Murphy was on this season of the Kardashians on Hulu, where he's like, "We want you to lead a show, you can produce, and we'll make it so it's easy on you." And I was like, "Wow!" First off, Kim's never getting her law degree at this point.
Yeah, no.
Second,
oh God, no!
I mean, it's over. And but by
the bar is like far away. Like it's way above her at this point, like just physically, because she's like never getting there.
You can tell that she genuinely loves being approached to be like to work her acting muscle.
Hello, of course she does.
So she's doing this show.
Whatever, like sure, like cool. You know what I mean? Like that's great, but like that was fun once. Not now. You're building shows around her. No, thank you.
But it's like the concept of the show, I think, is like the Fox Force 5 of divorce lawyers. And Kim heads this firm. Glenn Close signed on. Halle Berry had signed on, but then she backed out 2 weeks ago. So I'm really curious to see what happens from here.
Because Halle Berry's like, excuse me, what? She's like, oh, Glenn Close is in this with me? Great. And then she was like, wait, this is a show about Kim Kardashian? And then Halle Berry was like, as I said to Dominic on my show, I was in Gothica. I don't need to be here.
Wow, you dropped a Robert Downey Jr. Gothica reference?
And then I followed up with Swordfish, which is a better role for her.
Swordfish, yes.
Yeah, great.
By the way, I have Bravo We're Black, another great podcast. They always defend Halle Berry's Catwoman with their they fight for that movie.
Listen,
and I was like, wow.
Halle Berry could fart into a microphone for an hour and a half and I would go watch it because she's that beautiful. Okay.
Well, don't take my podcast idea, Halle. Please.
Yeah.
Fart into a mic. Well, would you ever, I was just thinking about this because I've been fascinated with the reality show. Would you ever fix Gypsy Rose Blanchard on your show?
I have wanted to, but that's like flying a little too close to home for Dominic's world. Whereas
reality.
I usually for Bravo, I stay away from Bravo, whereas he needs to stay away from that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We talk about her all the time.
Oh,
but does she need fixed? She's killing it. She's killing it.
Horrible.
I mean, it's a full on mess. I know, really. Oh my God. It's a full on mess, but I'm enthralled. I'm watching. I'm here.
I want
a viewer.
A second season, a third season. I mean, we were bummed after the 8 episodes. We were like, this is the finale? No. And like, how do you come out of prison and your life is more dramatic than it was in prison? You are already on a very dramatic reality series. And I was like, this can't end well for anybody.
A couple weeks ago, we learned about her pregnancy live on the air. Like the texts came in as we were recording, and I was like, Dominic, stop everything. Breaking news, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is pregnant, and we like screamed bloody murder.
Well, speaking to your earlier point is that, it's like you can see Gypsy Rose every night. She's live on TikTok. Like sometimes it's like, hang back, man. Let people film you for a reality show and don't just give it away on TikTok so you can like get money and people give you little hats to wear and stuff. It's kind of, you're like, God, people just kind of give it all away on social media now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So Celine Dion was at the Olympics. She did the opening ceremony. I love the Celine Dion documentary on Amazon Prime.
Did you love it?
It was horrific.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very powerful because I think a lot of us grew up with Celine Dion in such a way that it was really interesting. And I thought, to watch Celine Dion like openly have seizures in front of a camera and to like go, God, this is insane. And to think, she's never going to sing again. And then all of a sudden she's singing.
Yeah. Okay. I have famously very not liked the documentary Because
Why?
up until us actually watching her have a seizure, which was horrifying, and I cried through the whole thing because it was and I said, like, trigger warning, like, you probably don't. I said most people shouldn't watch this because it's really graphic and very scary. Yeah. Like, that was really powerful. They had that was a gift that they were given, because the rest of the documentary was probably one of the worst things I have ever watched. I'm serious. And I am coming to this. We learn nothing about her illness. We don't speak to a doctor. We don't speak to an assistant. We don't speak to a family member, one of her 14 siblings. We don't speak to her kids. We don't speak to, we watch her walk around her house. And again, I love a celebrity walking around their house, but it's a whole nothing sandwich. And the only real nuggets that you get out of it are in the trailer that was all over the internet for months. And then you learn nothing about her that you didn't already know if you're a mild fan of hers. And then she's just interspliced with like random concert footage that, again, I already own on DVD. I don't need to see this because I can just put the DVD in and watch it. Like, so
well, I mean, she's the only talking head. She's the only talking head in this, talking about herself, which was definitely like a choice. And I was like, okay, but they are showing the seizures, so they really are showing kind of a darker underbelly. But yeah, there's a lot of things that like get completely glossed over, but I think there's a layer of sympathy that you have for her that kind of excused a lot of like my critical thinking. And I'm just so curious, because we didn't have a doctor speaking. How was she able to do that performance at the Olympics? And now she has the Vegas thing coming back up again, supposedly.
We don't know. That's the thing, is like, we don't learn. We have no idea what the path to recovery for her is, because they don't lay that out for us in the documentary, which they should have.
Yeah.
Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, like, that's a great,
the documentary itself was terrible. Like, it was really bad. Like, I'm not even trying to be like, oh, I didn't like it. Like, it wasn't good. Like, if it gets nominated for something, I'll be like, are you fucking serious? Like,
it'll definitely get nominated for something. Are you kidding?
This is really bad. In my opinion, I don't know. I really disliked it. And again, I'm like her biggest fan. I wanted nothing more than to like love it. And it was truly, really, really boring and not fun. And again, it's sad and it's about her illness. So it's obviously going to be a very sad documentary, but like, it was very not well made. Again, get one doctor. There's not only did I learn more in the Hoda Kotb interview about the documentary than I did in the documentary, which is a problem. But then also the BBC did this thing where they talked to all these they talked to her and then all these doctors. And I learned way more about her condition in that news segment than I did in the fucking documentary.
Yeah. I mean, you really don't come away with knowing anything about stiff person disease, except that she has and that she was having to pop massive amounts of pills to be able to go on stage.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of mystery. It's interesting. It is interesting. Sometimes we forgive certain things that we would be harsh with other people because you love somebody so much that you're like, oh, it's just good to see her. It's good to see her walking around.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. Yeah. Seeing her not stiff. Seeing her not as stiff as we thought. Yeah. Like, which is great. The Olympics back. She's back, baby. Looked great. Yeah. Sounded great.
I mean, the Olympics, it's great to have this check-in every couple of years where you get inspired by athletes and performers and the grandeur. And like, I mean, I love that because everything is so negative lately. Speaking of documentaries, that brings us to Dirty Pop, the boy band scam. This is a 3-part docuseries. Each episode's around 45 minutes. And it's actually created by one of his boy band proteges. He's one of the producers on this. And I really had a misconception going into what this was going to be about. Because
that's my biggest note.
Yeah. Like I really went into it thinking it was going to talk a little bit more about his sexuality and some of the lasciviousness that came out in certain articles. And Rich Cronin, the member of LFO, who has since passed away, he went on Howard Stern at one point and talked about Lou and being really inappropriate with a lot of the young men around him. So I thought it was going to touch on that, and it very briefly, and instead he was like, I didn't realize how much of a Ponzi scheme that he was running. Did you think this was well made? Like even comparing it to like the Celine Dion doc, did you enjoy this?
You're putting it at the lowest bar possible. You're putting it at the absolute lowest bar possible. I thought it was okay made. But I wish this would not have been a 3-part series and just a long documentary. And then I think we could have had fun with it. They really love these like 4 to 3 episode docs on
why do you think they do this? I noticed this with Netflix. Is it just to keep you in?
I think it's to keep you in. I think it's to make it be a series. Like they're always going to be chasing Tiger King for the rest of forever, which rightfully so. Yes. Like in my opinion, like Tiger King, and then my favorite documentary series that they've ever had on there, Wild Wild Country. Like that to me was I forgot that was like that. One of the best things to ever exist. And that was
pre-pandemic, so that was
incredible. Like incredible. And they are chasing that. And if you really want to go back, remember Making a Murderer?
Of course.
With the guy. Like that was like we were gripped. You know, so they're chasing that always with these things. And so I wonder if this would have just been an hour and 45-minute documentary about it, how the pacing would be different. Because it's like you sell me on this idea that like it's about the making of NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys and how it was like nefarious. Yeah. But then what it really is at the end, which we see at the last thing you see is that it's the longest Ponzi scheme in the history of the United States, which is on its own extremely interesting and compelling. And so it's like, I wish I would have picked a lane in this and not tried to tell all of that, or told all of it through the lens of something that can like encompass all of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Like one episode is about like, oh, this person called this person, and then Justin called Joey Fatone, and then Chris Kirkpatrick was older than them, and then they found Lance on the side of the street, and then blah, blah, blah. And then that's NSYNC. You know what I mean? Like that part is fun, but like I actually didn't need to know any of that part, but it was like you sold me on like that's what this was like talking about the inception of these boy bands, when in reality it was about a Ponzi scheme where this guy was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah, it was Backstreet Bernie Madoff. I mean, that's what it was.
100%.
You know? And by the way, a really fascinating story, you know, with some of the minutia about like, you know, taking the loans from the banks to pay other bank loans, you know, and well, I will say out of the gate, I was already kind of livid and creeped out. Can you guess what I was creeped out by immediately in the first episode?
Was
they reused over and over again?
Oh God, I don't know. What was it?
Okay. They do an AI Lou Pearlman.
Oh, I hated it. That was my first note. Okay,
so you guys, they take Lou Pearlman's autobiography that he wrote. They take the audiobook from that and they make an AI Lou Pearlman and have his mouth saying his audiobook phrases. And he's sitting at a desk. And by the way, like before I read the caption that it was AI, I was like, this is a really weird shot. Like what? This is very, very like an old infomercial or something. And they do an AI rendering. And I just think it is atrocious and super creepy, especially for it to be Lou Pearlman.
It's also, here's my note. This is what I wrote down. I said, I don't like the using of AI to generate Lou's words. This is a slippery slope. And I actually don't want to hear this from his perspective since he's the perpetrator. Let's just have an actor read these parts of the book. I also don't like that they use parts of his book as his rebuttal to the FBI raid. Like, I don't like he's not only dead, but also the person that's like the culprit. And so we're like I know we're not technically putting words in his mouth, but it like is very much like building him into becoming a character, when in reality, the mystery of him would have been way more compelling.
Yeah. And you can tell,
you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
yeah. Well, I also think it can't make up its mind they still want to present him as some kind of underground hero by the end that brought joy to millions through the creation of these boy bands, when in essence he stole $500 million, 10 million only got paid back through restitution so far, and took elderly people's life savings. Like that's the part that was fascinating to me, was that this man, even in the success of all of these boy bands, was still putting articles in or putting ads in papers for like seniors to invest with Transcontinental because he would guarantee a high yield rate and get more money. And he said it was like FDIC secured. He just flat out lied. And here's this guy with the biggest bands in the world still taking seniors for everything they're worth.
I think also too, it's like with the episodic nature of it, it's like we had to like just talk about NSYNC at the beginning, and then we had to like and then it had to be like, oh, we have to have this like shocking turn where we like reveal that he's doing this Ponzi schemes. And it's like, I would have loved to have heard everything in chronological order, like, I would love to not have these shocks, because PS, like, you do one Google search of this and it's like,
yeah,
you can find out that he did this. It's not like no one knows that this happened. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, not that like this is like a breaking news. So it's like, I would have loved to have been like, while he's getting these boy bands together, he's also putting ads in the paper about blank, 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 blank. Like, it's like, we learn about the whole, like, the like pyramid scheme, like robbing Peter to pay Paul Ponzi shit, like way too late. Cause I'm like, I would have loved to know that, like, okay, I'm trying to reorder my thoughts.
Yeah.
What I'm like, yeah. Cause like, I would love to know that while Justin Timberlake and JC Chazé are like becoming, and like Nick Carter and all the other ones are like becoming famous, this man is also running like the weirdest, like personal ad scam in a newspaper. That is interesting to me, to know that these people that will become global superstars are the way that they're flying around the country is by these like older people being robbed of their lives.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And not that that's their fault at all, because it's not, but like, that to me is interesting. And we don't never get that in this documentary.
Yeah, there's never a connection.
And it's for like twists. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so that we like, this reveal comes and this episode's going to be all about this thing. And it's like, I would have loved for this to just be one thing where we're seeing the whole progression of the scam together.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Because they really like kind of not keep you in the dark, but at the beginning, it's like the rise of Lou Pearlman talks about, good kid, but he was into forgery. He could like forge signatures. But they made it sound like kind of cute and fun. And like, then he got into aviation, which then turned out, we find out in the third episode, to be completely a lie. He didn't own 56 jets that like celebrities flew on. That was kind of a lie as well. And he said he got into the boy band business because New Kids on the Block rented one of his planes, and he wanted to know how they had the money to rent his planes, and realizing that you could make hundreds of millions of dollars, not only in the band, but merchandising. And so that led him to start boy bands.
And and it's like not even, and like that picture that we see where it's like the plane like landing, but it's really like a model plane that he held on the thing, which PS genius, by the way. Like genius.
No, like he went all the way out to like,
it was smart. People. Like I was like, respect. I like was honestly like, put some respect on his name. Like honestly, like I was like, that's genius. But like, give that photo to AJ McLean, who's sitting in that chair, and be like, is this the plane that you flew on? And he's going to be like, what? And then you're going to be like, that's a toy plane that he's like, let me watch the Backstreet Boys see that photo. That's fine.
Well, yeah. And so they do have a couple. They have AJ McLean from the Backstreet Boys. They have Howie from the Backstreet Boys. They have Chris Kirkpatrick from NSYNC. They have a member of O-Town. Like I had even forgot some of the other boy bands that he helped. And I thought
some of those later ones. I was like, huh?
Yeah, I was like, what, famous?
They were like Natural. And I was like, I don't remember this.
Natural. That was it. Natural. Like I don't remember.
I was like, prime age for NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was I was the demographic. So like,
I loved NSYNC. I always remember being confused. Like, wait, the same guy represents I thought they were like against each other. I thought they were like against each other. I didn't realize the same guy managed them. So I do think it's kind of fascinating that this all started also from another ad of putting a boy band together in Orlando, Florida. And there is something really fascinating that he made them rehearse in like a really hot airplane hangar, and then took them to Germany to like really launch them. And we see some footage of them launching in Germany with the Backstreet Boys. And we see some of them in studio, and you see like a young Nick Carter fighting with like AJ McLean, which I thought was hysterical footage. Yeah. But it is interesting because you're right. It's like, it's two separate stories. Like there's
that actually isn't the story that we end up with.
Exactly. I love the footage, but I don't know necessarily how that fit into Lou's story, except for these kids were like, I mean, someday you're like, oh, there'll be a Backstreet Boys documentary where this will be great in, but it is interesting.
And like, tell me that like while they're fighting and he's in like this place in this studio with Max Martin and all this stuff, it's like he's like sweating bullets because he actually like the deal. Like we then find out later that like the deal he made was terrible. So the reason that they don't have any money, like when the Backstreet Boys are like, oh, we got $10,000 for like two like albums, we got $10,000 of money. Like we find out that it's because Lou actually had no money either. You know what I mean? Yeah. It wasn't because Lou had hundreds of millions and they had nothing and he didn't give them any. It's because the way that they got fame was that the deal was so bad that the record company signed it. You know what I'm saying?
I
like,
will. Yeah, that's
so fascinating. Like, tell me
yes.
that when it's happening, and then when they're doing the legal dispute.
Yeah, because he signed a deal, you guys, with BMG, the music label, but he wasn't really making money off that, but he used it because he thought BMG gave him credibility in the business world to
Which
be
it
able
did.
to run all of these, to be able to run all of these other scams and get these loans from all of these banks. And it's so interesting. It reminded me of like Goodfellas in a way, where you would see all these parties and you realize Lou's paying for everybody. Lou is paying for the party. Lou's paying to take everybody to dinner. You know those type of people. They're just like there. I mean, there's like a really sad footage of him like scarfing down like a lobster tail at like a steak restaurant.
Yeah. Oh, brother, with all those dinner. Well, yeah, all those dinners were like rough. Like whenever you would see him like with all the people, it was just like all these young kids and like in the part in the beginning when you see the Backstreet Boys, like Nick is like a little child, and then the other ones are like grown men. So tiny. Like, and then you're like, ew, and then this big fat man that's disgusting is like eating a lobster tail.
They call him Big Papa. Like, by the way, disgusting. We already know from Jersey, Big Papa, usually not great when we associate, like nobody should be called Big Papa. Let's just stop it.
Yeah.
But that was really, the footage with Nick Carter was wild because I was like, oh, he's so young, much
and
younger.
Kevin
than
is like,
is
like, I have like a tax return. Do you know what I mean? Like Kevin is like a 30-year-old. He has like a 401k somewhere. And then Nick is like truly 13 years old.
Yeah, no, I mean, so it is interesting because you're like, oh, I know these musicians. I remember when this launched, and that's kind of interesting. But all of this stuff underneath it is the actual story, and they don't do a good job setting that story up in the first episode. But it's not like this unique surprise. But I will say there is some like kind of dissonance in my memory of I really thought he went to jail for like some weird like pedophilia kind of thing, when in fact it was because of this Ponzi scheme.
Like racketeering and shit. Yeah.
Yes. And it was very weird. But like in the second episode, they talk just I'm talking like a minute and a half of, was Lou creepy with the young men that he worked with? A British lady that worked for him.
That assistant, I can't deal with her. I was
I will never speak badly. I will never speak badly about Louis Pearlman. He was, never speak. Of course you didn't. He paid for everything that you did.
Meanwhile, she's wearing every piece of jewelry she owns in the interview. Like she had like a golden ring on every single finger and like 17 necklaces on. And I was like, you rich fuck. Like she was like, he was perfectly okay. And then like the next thing, it was like, he was forging letters from this man that was dead, and she was like, I saw a few things that I didn't think were right, but I looked past it. Like, you know what I mean? I was like, I'm like, you were all paid up on this bitch, and you're living your life now.
I mean, they all like, even like the friend, which by the way, sadly, one of his best friends who worked for his company eventually ended up taking his life.
Yeah.
Because of, because of the scenario.
They allude to like that he sees that like it's all a house of cards and he like is scared.
Yeah, and they have this gentleman's mother in the show, and the mother had put away all of her life savings for Lou to invest as well. I mean, she lost her son, and that is so. I mean, but it's interesting that comes up at like the end of the second episode, and then they just pick right back up in the third episode and go back in time, and everything's fine.
And that's the thing is like because it's a series, they like have the couple minutes to talk about like was he a pedophile or not, and it's like if this was just a documentary, and again like if you're gonna talk about that like. You need to either do it and have evidence or be like, there were allegations, but there's not enough evidence to like there were always rumors, but again, like no one has come forward, but like, that's not true because you're saying the guy from LFO was on Howard Stern. Where's the Howard Stern footage?
Yeah. Well, I mean,
like where's you know what I mean? Can't you license the footage from Howard Stern?
I know.
Yes,
that's why I think
so it's like sad.
They willfully didn't speak about this because they didn't want to. Yeah, this is the direct quote actually from Rich Cronin, who passed away in 2010 after his battle with leukemia. He said, Howard asked whether Lou touched him inappropriately. Cronin said, eventually he did. There were a lot of guys that did go for it. And if they went for it, he took care of them. He'd buy him cars. I had to go through lots of therapy. I went crazy. I mean, the guy was awful. Besides all the money stuff, he was a really creepy guy.
Yeah, that's confirmation, is it not?
That's confirmation. I mean, like, unfortunately, this gentleman's passed away.
Yeah, but I
find that interesting for that to be confirmation and for that section to be left out and just kind of brushed over. And they even go as far to say Lou Pearlman was more asexual. He just wasn't a sexual being.
You're
He
right.
was asexual.
You're right. Which is weird. I didn't like that either. You're so right.
And then the other weird thing in the second episode was that he had like a medical issue and that he had to have a nurse with him. And the nurse was with him for like a week and a half or something, went away. And then he called and invited the nurse out to dinner. Like, we're going to like Orlando to do this. Come with us. And then he started introducing the nurse as his girlfriend, which took the nurse by complete shock and said that was not the relationship we had at all. But he started sending her Louis Vuitton purses and cards, and he would talk about her in interviews as his girlfriend.
But that was like one cover for like, I have a girlfriend. I'm not a pedophile.
Exactly.
And two, like, also that the like, oh, look, I am not a monster because this woman wants to be with me. And it really is. I said, one of my notes is I like the theme of the fact that American culture opens doors for people who are perceived as successful. So many doors were open to him because it looked like he was a hotshot star maker. And that was all the things he did were all a part of giving this aura of like everything I touch turns to gold.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it kind of did, in the sense that two of the biggest boy bands ever to exist came out of him, like, you know, putting them together. Yeah. But it's like, it really is that thing. Cause again, remember whenever he tried to say that like on 9/11, when they were stuck, like he called President Bush and Bush sent an airplane. Like, of course he didn't. Like President Bush didn't have his phone number, let alone was answering a random phone call.
It's Lou. I got to take this.
Yeah, like it was like, you know, in the wake of the worst American tragedy of all time. Like Lou Pearlman was not on the phone with the president. Like,
but it is interesting when you have those kind of successes, you are more apt to believe those big lies.
100%. And it was someone powerful that got that plane off the ground because everyone was grounded. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was something like.
Well, they also talk about that money he donated to politicians. He donated, like he had all of these people,
like all those sheriffs. Yeah.
I mean, this is what I really did actually enjoy all the party footage, because you even see Hulk Hogan, who loves appearing at these things. Hulk Hogan was there. Hey, brother, you got to vote for this sheriff right here, brother. We got to get him. Like, I was like, oh, wow, Hulk really just loves showing up at political events. This is great. But it was like all funded by Lou Pearlman. And do you think, and this, I go back and forth on this, do you think Lou Pearlman knew what a criminal he was, or do you think those kind of businessmen are always like, this is part of business and I can fix this all?
I think it's somewhat that. I mean, this is the thing that's so funny, is that a Ponzi scheme never works. Like, it's never succeeded. Like, they always are taken down because the debt gets too big, and then their credit is not good enough anymore. So it's like, it's funny because it isn't something I don't think they ever plan to get into, because it truly is always fails. Do you know what I mean? Like, it always, even if it's a corporation, it fails. Like, even if it has the whole reach of the whole world, like, it eventually fails because you borrow I listened to some like weird, I can't remember. I mean, Scam Goddess talks about this all the time, but also there was some other like, which I love her, but there's another whole thing that it was, I can't remember who it was. It was like something about like scammers, and they were talking about how like Ponzi schemes, eventually you will be caught because it mathematically never works out. But the thing that like, I think it is, he was like, oh no, I'm going to like borrow this, and then I'm going to like, no, I'm going to pay these people back. I'm going to pay these people back, and blah, blah, blah. And he just kind of never gets there. Does he know it's wrong? Of course. Do I think he sets out to be a Ponzi scheme? No, but he's like, if I just get to this level and get this deal, then I'm going to get all this money back, and then we're going to be fine. But he never thought that the kids were then going to turn around and be like, I want to leave. Like, what is this? Do you know what I mean? Like, he banked on these kids being loyal to him, and then they were like, no, what? Like, we're living off of, we have no money, and we're the biggest boy band in the world. Like, what are you talking about? You're giving me $10,000. Like, I deserve millions of dollars. And so that is, to me, and again, we breeze past them fighting him in the.
I know, like that was like all like,
and I thought them sitting down with like, they're with like Diane Sawyer, like Katie. They're with like humongous. Like, I've like forgot that this was a huge story when it happened. Yeah. Like, I was young also, so I probably like was above my head, but like, they are sitting down with like the biggest interviewers of our time. Like, they're like with Barbara Walters talking about it. Like, it's not like it's like they're on like cable access news talking about it. It's like they're sitting down on like 2020, like talking with Barbara Walters or like Diane Sawyer or someone. I can't remember who the interviewers were, but it was like big names being like, well, are you gonna like, Lou, like, what's happening? Why are all these people leaving you? And he's like, it's gonna be fine, like blah blah blah. Like, that was a big deal. Like, why didn't that could have been a whole episode on its own?
Yeah.
Let alone like we get through it in 2 minutes. That's humongous, because that's kind of the beginning of the end for him, because then he's chasing the dragon of these boy bands and then starts all these other ones.
Yeah, I mean and the other ones, like we say, like what was the one you just said? Natural. Like you know, it's like lightning cannot strike 6 times. Like he had NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, LFO,
and LFO only had one album. Like LFO, we like remember, but it's because that one song.
Well, I mean, it is interesting to like you had the O-Town, you had Making the Band, you had the other reality show that they talked about called Big in America, which I completely don't remember at all.
I don't remember it at all.
Another reality show where Lou Pearlman was trying to make a boy band. And I just thought this was all under the banner, you guys, of Transcontinental. It started off as Transcontinental Airlines, but then it was Transcontinental, and everything ran through his company, Transcontinental. And he owned a bunch of franchises with TCBY, a steakhouse.
Wait,
he owned property in Orlando.
So funny as they were like, well, he was like an entrepreneur in so many ways. And like, he had all these TCBY locations. And I was like, what?
I just imagine him giving like free yogurt coupons to like NSYNC, like, hey kid, go get yourself a swirl.
But like, actually, oh, that's so funny. But that's the thing that's funny is like, that's so interesting that it's like he had all these, and again, they gave him a television show that like was the other version of this, was one that was headed by Diddy, who was a humongous famous rapper. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like at the time, like he was on top of the world. It's like they gave Lou Pearlman the TV show, like everyone believed that he was as well. It wasn't just these 16-year-old kids dying to be famous that believed him. Like the sheriffs were like doing whatever, you know what I mean? At one point he was like gonna get, what was it? Like there was gonna be charges, and then like the sheriff like dismissed them, or like the judge dismissed them. And it was like, oh yeah, I wonder why. Wait. He
was greasing palms. Like,
yeah, of course he was.
I mean, but by the way, then you kind of learn more about celebrity culture, and it does seem like craziness like this happens all the time, which you mentioned Diddy. And I was like, God, are you going to ever fix Diddy on your show?
No, he's on the unfixables list. He's not redeemable. Yeah. No, he's it's going to be a no. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know what's on a 3-part docuseries though, what's interesting about Lou Pearlman too, is that you never get a sense of who he is. I mean, you get a sense of it. He's just like this figure that kind of goes around and lumbers around, and he kind of mutters to himself, or even we see his like 50th birthday party or 60th, one of the like, and everybody's singing to him and he's like blowing kisses. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. But you never get a sense, like there's never like this ever like a heart to heart moment where he's talking to somebody, you know, and a lot of his childhood friends love him, but he's taking care of all of his childhood friends. Because he's like the Robert Durst of like his world. You know what I mean?
Exactly. All those women that are like, I love him. That woman that has that house. And I'm like, you bitch. Like, I'm like, you like, oh my God, like you have all of his money now. Like, yeah, no wonder you love him so much. You know, it's like the same thing. It's like it's sad because it's like they had a really good story, and it's one that everyone that is my age or a little bit older or a little bit younger is immediately bought into because of the NSYNC Backstreet Boys situation. And again, much like the Celine Dion documentary, it's like you have something that is so powerful in nature and it is completely fumbled with like, I don't know. I just felt like you're right.
So many interesting tidbits, but it's not told in the right way. So 3 parts to your point is so weirdly like just way too much for a thing that could do a really 1.5-hour documentary.
And we need a focusing. We need a focusing of like, what is this documentary about? Is it, because guess what? The people in Netflix are like, guess what we need to do first? Like set up NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Duh. Was I fucking diddling myself to that part? He sure was. Loved it. Do you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, and then who called who? And then this and that, and like loving that.
But I'm shocked they got the clearance to some of the songs they did. Like they had Larger Than Life by Backstreet Boys.
It's Netflix.
Yeah, but still, I thought like they're just like throwing content. I don't know. That kind of shocked me.
But again, did they spend all the money on that versus like actually making the documentary? Maybe.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
True. Yeah. Well, also they make this argument, you guys, that he is, you know, a lot of the reason he's like this because he was an insecure kid. He was overweight. And I love like that. Those are like 2 of the things that they keep bringing up of like why he is the way he is, which is just kind of bizarre. And like, once again, I never really got any kind of confirmation from Lou himself about his insecurities.
And again, and that's what's also hard is like when you have this AI version of him who's talking, you like book. You do actually get him you do get a sense of him speaking. So then you want more of that, but you can't because it's AI and like, it's not real. So they can't just make him be like, it really was a detriment. Because if you see if it's him as this like mysterious figure that no one knew anything about, that's fun to me. Like that to me is intriguing. Whereas like when they try to humanize him and make him be this living character that you see in this video, like that is actually to the detriment of the actual full documentary, in my opinion.
Well, I will say that even in some of the pictures choices, you actually do feel sympathy for Lou Pearlman. There's one where they freeze frame on him eating a gigantic pretzel, and he's like, and I'm like,
I want that so bad. I'm so hungry.
Like, wow. Also, some of the weirder little tidbits in this doc. I didn't expect to have Art Garfunkel pop up from Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, what was that? It was like they needed to get to him to give him his body. Remember, it was like we didn't know what to do with Lou's body. I was like, I don't care about this.
He was related to the Garfunkel, so Art Garfunkel was like a family friend and a relative. So Art Garfunkel, we see a picture of Lou and Art as a young boy, and then at the very we see a video that Art Garfunkel like made for Lou's 50th birthday saying, "We're so proud of you, Lou. We always loved you as a family." But then tragically to some people, he dies in prison, Lou Pearlman, because he had a faulty heart valve that had like an infection around it. He went into he agreed to go into a coma to fix things, and he unfortunately passed away while in that coma. And then this is like really sad and dark, is that nobody wanted to pick up the body. Like they reached out to like the Garfunkels, and nobody
because he burned every bridge he had.
Exactly. And he's ended up buried in a family plot, but he does not have a marker on it. Like imagine you pass away and they don't even give you a marker. That's how much shame you brought to your family.
That was rough. Yeah. I was like, oh fuck. Like, and that was there was a part where I was like, why do I care about where his body is? Like, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? There was
who's taking a trek to go see Lou Pearlman's body?
And just like, I don't care that no one wants to claim his body. Yeah, no shit. He was like a scam artist that like fucked all these people over. Like, duh. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, there was like, could some of the real estate,
but that's what I'm trying. They tried to make us sympathize with him instead of going,
or that he had no one. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, but there is something to it. What they were trying to do was convey that like he so badly wanted to be this hotshot Hollywood producer, and in reality, like no one even knows where he's buried, because like his name isn't even on his own gravestone because he was so hated at the end of it. Like that is poetic that like he so desperately wanted his name up in lights, and even his gravesite doesn't have his name on it. There's something that's so compelling with that, but the way that they handled that, telling us that, was so poor.
Well, imagine, unfortunately, any of us pass away, and then Chris Kirkpatrick is on film going, "He got what he deserves." Because Chris Kirkpatrick that's his quote. He got what he deserves. And I was like, damn, Chris. But it's true. Like, and Justin Timberlake, they said after his death, they showed some of the celebrity well wishes, or, Justin Timberlake tweeted out something, "Rest in peace. I hope you're finally at peace." And these boy bands have to kind of come to grips
still give credit to him.
Yeah, this is the person that did give them their shot. It would not have happened without Lou Pearlman, but at the same, like, that's why life is so damn tricky. And I think that's such a fascinating story, but like you said, it's not told in the right way.
And it's, the thing too, is that it's like, this is what every documentary series does now, is like in the last 5 minutes, it's like, okay, now like, let's look at this as a whole now, and like have like everyone give their final words. Like everyone we've interviewed is going to give their final little remark about like this broad stroke of like his life or something. And it's like, if they would have taken 20 minutes to like point out some other people that are doing this kind of thing, not that they can accuse people of like doing Ponzi schemes, but like look at blank, 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 or look at like these other kinds of people that have like taken the world by storm by pretending to be really hot shot and it didn't work out for them or something. Like there's such a way to connect this to American society that would have been so interesting that they just completely missed. And they tried to sum up in one sentence, which is like a whole episode worth of stuff that you could talk about. I don't know. Maybe I'm just making this up in my mind that this makes sense.
The American dream intersected with pop culture is something, and also with the explosion in the 90s of being able to ride that wave or actually restart that wave of boy bands after New Kids on the Block had kind of come and gone at that point. You know, he really did do something. And in some ways, he was headed towards being like the Berry Gordy of boy bands.
Sure, yeah.
But like it all wound in this whole, like it said, this whole financial part of it was actually happening behind this kind of revamp of an art form. So it's really interesting.
And like what we think of as this huge money maker and this like very thought out and like constructed industry setup. I'm just saying words like industry setup, like boy band, like industry plant, as they say nowadays. Like they were conspired together to like become these humongous juggernaut boy bands, was actually just this desperate man that was trying to like get money to pay back people. And like, he knew he could get money with boy bands. Like that to me is endlessly fascinating. And they did not enough emphasize that like,
Chris, that's it.
You know what I'm saying?
I wish we had one, like even one voice message of like, it's Lou, I'm freaking out. I'm losing it. Like, you know, like one moment where like we had him on audio or video realizing how far because by the way, when he goes on the run to Bali with the one of the boy bands for like one of the boy band singers from Natural, like who actually is the producer of this docuseries, which I think it's a mistake for him to produce it because
which maybe that's the problem.
Well, he's on the run and they're using his name, his credit card. And, you know, Lou is still forging things to get bank loans, which he's still getting on the run. And I will say one of the funnier moments is that Lou is staying with this kid in Bali and he goes under the name Incognito Johnson.
Love it.
Incognito Johnson. What a way to hide. Incognito Johnson. Love it. Yeah. But so the FBI gets him, like they take him down. He's like, they get him in Guam eventually.
But that's the thing is like, I wish there was like someone who was like a financial analyst or someone that's like an expert that we have throughout the documentary to just like be like, okay, so at this time, this is what kind of money is like, this is kind of the money that he's like has and blah, blah, blah. And explaining to us like what's in the bank accounts. Cause that to me is amazing. Like if we would have just been following the money the whole time instead of like the fame of it, that would have been so compelling that like, wow, NSYNC is on TRL and is an absolute sensation. Like what, like, oh, he really only had like $30,000 and like couldn't like was borrowing more money so that he could like fly them somewhere else. Like that this was on a shoestring for real that. And now they're like all like Justin Timberlake is an A-list celebrity for the rest of our lives, period. Yeah. Despite what I might think of that, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's like you know what I mean? Like, like that's crazy to think about the fact that like this man with a dream and a wish and a prayer, like got these people to become humongous superstars and actually did it with little to no resources.
Well, yeah. I mean,
and that's not to like glorify him. It's like just very interesting.
I do wonder though about that time when he was with Backstreet and NSYNC and everything was going swimmingly. Was he trying to get like Carson Daly to invest with him? Like what are the conversations Lou was having with other celebrities? Because you got to imagine he was cocky and on like a winning streak. I wonder the other people he reached out to because he kept trying to form bands. But then at the very end, you guys, it picks back up with the boy band story. And it's all like Backstreet Boys, like we're still doing it 30 years. And we see a sold out arena. You watch like the NSYNC reunion at the VMAs with Taylor Swift. And I just think it's interesting. It's like, okay, now we pick back up with them and they're still okay. Lou's dead. And that's the end of this story.
I know. There's such a larger... I really try to, I've been negative about basically every single thing that we've brought up on this episode so far. And I really don't want to be that way. However, there's something that we so desperately need in documentary filmmaking again. And I will point to the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders documentary as something that does this well, that is like, it somehow speaks to the overall American consensus. Do you know what I'm saying? And like, we didn't have that here. Like, I wanted to be like, oh, this thing that you think is so amazing was actually kind of a lie the whole time. You know what I mean? And now, and they're still riding on the success of that, like fake it till you make it situation.
Yeah, and which you
And,
would
like,
then like make a larger point of like
Yeah.
fame can sometimes be a
And
lie.
now,
It's all
and
like a
now
bubble.
every single person's trying to be famous in their own way on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
there's the perfect. I mean, that's I try to like not make. That's always my like final point of everything is like, and now everyone wants to be a celebrity. So that's low hanging fruit, but at least it's something where it's like, look, now you don't even need Lou Pearlman because you can just do it on Instagram. Blah 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 blah, and like how that like what other scams are there running right now that we don't even know about that are like. You know, like, I don't know. Maybe
Well,
I'm not making
I
any
also
sense,
wonder
but
how. No, you are. I just wonder how many Lou Pearlmans there are out there right now.
right now.
Like, and also, and especially with like in like the influencer culture. Like, who's like behind the influencer
Well, look at
culture?
look
Like,
at
who's
that.
managing
What was
these
that?
people?
The TikTok dance thing?
Oh,
Yeah, like
the
that's
cult,
the same
yeah.
thing. Same fucking thing.
Yeah,
They're just in
yeah.
a cult now. You know what I mean? They're just more brainwashed than like all the NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys were. Like, look at like, do you remember that there was a documentary a long time ago now? It was called Hot Girls Wanted. Do you remember this documentary?
Yes, totally.
And it was
Yep.
about like girls getting into porn. And it was
so
like, and it was
dark
like,
because they would move them out to like a city or a state, and they would do a couple of scenes and get like
and
a little, and they would all live in the same
was
house.
their manager. There was like a guy
Yeah.
that was their manager, and they'd have to like pay rent and this and that and blah blah blah. And he like, it was just very like that's Lou Pearlman. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many other examples of this that are like still happening today, and that is like so we could have come to some bigger conversation about it, and we didn't. And that was upsetting to me.
I also think it was bizarre. They bring up Michael Jackson in the course of like Lou Pearlman says, you know, like, I'm going to work with Michael Jackson. I'm going to do this. And like, they also bring up Michael Jackson and the Jackson 5 and him like rehabbing his image, which I don't necessarily know why Michael Jackson was thrown into this, especially if you're not going to touch Lou's own allegations. So I thought that was a weird like throw.
And like make that be something. I don't know. I just wish I wish there would have been like a pop culture critic that was on this too, to be like,
Chris,
maybe like you, maybe both
of us.
But
well,
like,
it is
but
interesting.
Like
they did not have anybody. They didn't have anybody.
Being like, oh, and then he's trying to like make it look like this and make it look like we were told the story, but we weren't given like people's opinions a lot. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I just watched that.
We needed that in this.
Well, did you watch that Bratz documentary, Andrew McCarthy?
I didn't.
Well, I did. And they, you know, it was whatever, but they had Ira Madison as a pop culture critic on that. And it like actually filled in. And to your point, yes, that would have been amazing to talk about like perspective and, you know, trying to bring back people to a certain place in time and really what that meant and how we viewed Lou Pearlman. And especially you, I mean, it would have been interesting to talk to some fans of how they viewed Lou Pearlman.
Yeah. And like, also, too, I'm rewinding back to like when they're in the legal battle with him, like NSYNC and the Backstreet Boys. Like eventually in the court, like they're finding out what the deal is, right? Like eventually in the courts, like they find out that the deal is bad. They have to. So then why am I not finding out then? Like, why am I not like, I would have loved to have like I keep saying financial analyst if I think that, and I keep trying to pretend like I know what that means, but like someone that like knows how to look through these documents to be like, oh yeah, their deal, like even just a random lawyer to be like as a consultant to be like, oh yeah, like, no, this is like this,
yeah, it seems like everybody knew,
like
everybody knew from the beginning what he was doing.
Parks herself, the entertainment lawyer, could come in and say like, oh yeah, this is a terrible deal. I mean, Lou got this much money, and then we could have a graph that brings out the money, and like I wanted so much more. I wanted to get in the muck with them about
because
it. It was this high, like 10,000 feet view of like what the story was. And it's like, no. I'd rather just have a whole episode where like the deal that he signed for NSYNC was broken down. I would be a pig in shit for that.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate that we're in a year and a time where we are looking back on certain pop culture phenomenon and like certain incidents, but I want them done well. Like I was so excited hearing that this docuseries was coming out. And, you know, like there's little bits and pieces of information I got, but overall I wasn't just like, holy shit. So that was dirty pop, you guys, but just to your, you said, oh, I'm being negative about everything. What have you loved lately? Like what's something that you've loved?
Casey just made me watch the new Surreal Life.
I can't find it on MTV. They only air it like once or twice a week.
It's not on MTV, but I bought it for $2 on Amazon Prime. Ryan, it's worth it.
How's Chet Hanks?
Amazing. Him and Kim Zolciak's sexual chemistry jumps off the screen.
Well, he kind of reminds me of a younger Croy in some ways.
No, I said, is this Croy 2.0? Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I loved it. Macy Gray
how is Macy? That's what I was going to bring up. Macy Gray. What is she doing there?
I said, she's the Mary Cosby of the show. It's amazing. I said Macy Gray said the show as Mary Cosby is to Salt Lake City. I'm not going to lie to you. It's pretty fucking good. I was really liking it. I was loving it.
I don't get why they don't. This is what I don't understand about TV lately is there's so much of it, but shows like this, they make them hard to find. And I don't think they do outreach to let people know that it's out. And
again, when you play it, it says Paramount in the first thing. And I went on Paramount Plus and it's not there. Like it's the first, don't get me started on MTV and all just don't get me started, please. I like working, so please don't make me do this. So,
I did a whole episode about MTV with Dave Holmes and it's insane. Like I'm so bummed.
But, I was loving it. It reminds me of the old show from back in the day. Like it does still have the essence
Surreal
of the
Life.
old show, and it is so fun, like in a great way. And was loving that. I'm loving. And of course, I know I've said it till I was blue in the face, and everyone that already knows me is like, shut the fuck up. But the America's Sweethearts, the Dallas Cowboy cheerleader documentary, when I tell you every single person trying to make a documentary, stop, sit your ass in front of this TV with a notepad, watch this documentary, and take a fucking page. It's the best thing I've ever watched. Love it.
So I didn't think, I was like, I'm not going to watch that.
It?
Well, no. I was like, I'm not going to watch it. It doesn't seem like my speed.
Sure.
And then a lot of people that I love kept recommending it. So I started it last week. I'm 4 episodes in, and it's the same people that produced Cheer, I believe, on Netflix. And I think what I really, it's the seriousness in which they take it. Like it's filmed beautifully. They really get these great up and close interviews with all of the subjects. You realize what a history it has. Like there's all these relationships already formed, and they do a good job of really taking us through the underbelly of the cheerleading world, which I didn't even realize there was an underbelly.
And yet still giving us fun stuff.
Yes.
Like you're still rooting for all of them and want them to make it, despite them being like, they get paid like $2 an hour. Do you know what I mean? And it's actually not like a true crime about how like these women are being ripped off. Like that's there and it's presented, but then we continue on with our lives. And like, yes, is that in the back of our mind? And is like Kelly and that other one with the blonde hair, like the two monsters of like, are they the two villains that show up to like chop necks? Yes. But like, they're still like, it's just presented in a way that is just the future. I'm so sorry. And it is, I have been saying it's the most unbiased thing that I have watched in a very long time. There's not like weird music to tell you like, you should be sad that they only make this much money. You're just like given that as a fact. And then we're moving along. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And even when they're like,
totally.
When they're like in the drawing room and they're like, oh, this one girl that needs a makeover so desperately. Like when they're slamming these girls, like, again, it's not like, boom, like evil woman coming. Like it's just like it happens, you acknowledge it, you're like, this woman is a monster, and then you like continue on with your life, and then you're like, come on, Reese, like you're praying to Jesus hoping Reese like makes it, you know what I mean? Because she's like,
when they're like later there was like, oh, she had a little issue with her eating last year, hopefully she's got that on track. And I was like, wow, they're talking, it's really interesting to hear them talk about these very real issues, but in the course of like trying to get to this like this goal of being a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader.
Yes.
You're right. It's awesome.
At one point, okay, you said you're 4 episodes in?
Yeah.
Okay, at a certain point, you're going to get to where you watch them perform Thunderstruck all the way through. And when I tell you, and you're like, you watch them perform this like 65,000 times every episode. So you're like, okay, I'm so over this. When you watch it all the way through, you're like, it's at the beginning of one of the later episodes, and it ends and they fall into the split, and you're like I have goosebumps literally. Look, I have goosebumps thinking about it because
it's the women's gymnastics team from the Olympics.
Yes, it is like you're blown away and you're like, wow, this is what they'd all do it for, because that was fucking electrifying. Do you know what I mean? Like it's so good.
Well, damn. I mean, that is a solid recommendation. So, okay, we got to watch the Dallas Cowboys. Dirty Pop, guys, watch it if you want to watch it.
Put it on while you're cleaning your house.
Yeah,
put it on
I think we gave you most of the pertinent information on this episode. I do want to, once again, as we unfortunately are at the end of this right now, is Fixing Famous People podcast. Every week, subscribe. You also have a Patreon. Is that right?
We do. We basically at a certain point are like, okay, we're being too depraved to put this on the normal feed. Like we're being crazy. So there's a lot of stuff that basically are like just some rants that we might have about something that we cut out, and we basically have a cutting room floor episode, and we put those out every other week. That is just like a smattering of all the things that kind of were left on the cutting room floor from episodes that are still really funny. And then we do bonus episodes and live Zooms in our highest tier. And actually just this week, for the first time, the first 30 some minutes of our show is like basically Wendy Williams Hot Topics. We just like go over what's happening in the zeitgeist. Like this week, we talk about the Olympics opening ceremonies, Cher's memoir, etc. So we this week decided, okay, we want to do more. We have so much more to say, but like we can't just do a full episode of just Hot Topics. We need to get to we need to fix someone this week. So we'll basically take like 15 minutes of like us talking Hot Topics and put that on the Patreon. So
that's awesome.
That's something we're going to start doing. And that's to all of our tiers. So
that Cher memoir is wild. It's like part 1. And I'm like, there's 2. I'm like, what? Yeah, Barbra Streisand released it all in one book. Cher, you're trying to double dip.
Well, Dominic says he thinks that because everyone is like, why is Barbara's book so long? I think that's why she did it.
Oh,
which makes sense, because that was a complaint. I will petition Dominic to come on this podcast once that drops so that he can.
Please, yes. Yeah,
he's the biggest super fan of Cher ever. So you guys, you got to listen to them. Their banter is so awesome.
Like you're gonna love them immediately when you check them out. I have no doubt. What are you doing? What are you doing the rest of your day? What a big producer like you? What are you doing?
God, nothing. Well, because everyone's at the Olympics shooting, I'm not doing anything. So I've started to do some podcast consulting. So if any of your listeners are thinking about,
that's actually a big deal. Like that. No, I mean, I do get a lot of people that will come to me and ask about podcasting. Like this would be a perfect person for you guys to talk to.
Send them my way. I'll give you the tough truth from a reality television producer about what you got to do to, whether you want to do a hobby podcast or you want to make money and you want to do kind of what you and I do, like I can help you. So I just right now I don't have a website yet. It's very, very bare bones. So just DM me at Chris DeRosa.
I'll put his Instagram handle. I'll put all that information in the show notes. And are you excited to see how we all take this Sunday's finale for Jersey? Are you excited?
I cannot wait for you all to finally see it. I've been sitting on this for a while, and so I can't wait for you guys to finally see it. And just I hope you are liking the season, and I just hope that you continue. I hope that it blows you away.
Woo! I'm actually really excited. It's all led up to this, and I'm just so curious what this is that we've heard about the entire season and what actually made us not have a reunion.
I'm nervous that it's like you guys are gonna be like, that's it. Like, but no, it's you want it. I promise. It's a pretty. I watched it like a week ago, and I was like, I know everything that's happening, and like I'm shaking from this. You know what I mean? Like I was there in the room when it's happened, and I know every twist that's coming, and I'm still like, wow, this is a lot. Like this is riveting television.
Oh, also speaking of podcasting, I watched this past week's episode. The Louis podcasting studio. My God, I was jealous.
I know. I wish we could have that. I was like, what?
I was like, what the whole time you had the cameras. I was like, this is ridiculous. I was so jealous.
Well, they have like a 17 million car garage. So there's like, they can give up 2 spots, and like have,
Oh God. Anyways, Chris DeRosa, Fixing Famous People. Go check it out now. And Chris, you are welcome back anytime you want to talk about anything.
Thank you as I tell Kate Casey, just give me my homework and I'm ready to go. Okay.
By the way, he did. He watched the show. That's insane. Thanks, Chris. Yeah.